The rain had not stopped for 3 nights in the city, and the streets glowed with the reflection of neon lights mixing with water. The air smelled of smoke, metal, and old secrets. At the end of one broken street stood a bar no one remembered being built, and yet it was always there. Its flickering red sign carried no name, only a symbol that looked older than the language of men. Inside, the bar was quiet, but not empty. Strange shadows moved along the walls as if the building itself breathed. At the far corner of the room, behind a table where the light never reached fully, sat a woman dressed in black, her face half hidden beneath the hood of her coat. She was not drinking. She was waiting. And when he walked through the door, dripping rain onto the dusty floorboards, her eyes lifted as if she had been expecting him all along. He was just an ordinary man, or so he believed. He had the look of someone who had wandered too far, someone who did not belong in such a place, and yet his footsteps carried no hesitation. He did not know why he entered, only that something pulled him inside, like a silent hand guiding his every move. He walked past the bar counter, where the old bartender did not even glance at him, as if blind to his presence. He walked straight toward the woman in black. She raised her hand, not to greet, but to stop him from speaking too soon. Then, without a word, she pushed a small glass toward him. Inside the glass, a liquid glowed softly, not like fire, but like starlight caught in water. Her voice was calm but heavy, the kind of voice that carries weight far beyond words. "Drink this," she said. "But know this truth once you do, you will never be human again." The words hung in the air, louder than the storm outside. He stared at her, then at the glowing cup, then back at her. He wanted to laugh, to dismiss it as a game, a trick played by a lonely woman in a forgotten bar. But something in her eyes stopped him. They were not the eyes of a liar. They were the eyes of someone who had seen too much. He pulled out a chair and sat across from her, his curiosity stronger than his fear. "What's the catch?" he asked, trying to sound casual, but his voice shook slightly. She did not answer with a smile, nor with comfort. Instead, she leaned closer and whispered words that made his skin crawl. "It is not about what you gain, it is about what you lose." He felt the air grow colder, though the room had no windows open. His hand reached for the glass almost by instinct. The liquid shimmered brighter when his fingers touched the surface, as if recognizing him. The woman's gaze sharpened, like a hunter watching prey step into a trap. "Do not do this," she warned one last time. "You still have a choice. Leave now, and you will wake tomorrow forgetting this place ever existed. Stay drink, and you will never return to the life you knew." For a long moment, silence pressed between them. He could hear his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. The shadows in the bar seemed to lean closer, curious, restless. He looked at the glass, and then at his own reflection within it. His face looked strange, almost stretched, as though the drink bent the light of the world around him. A small laugh escaped him, nervous, broken, but he covered it by forcing courage into his voice. "What's the worst that can happen?" Without waiting for another word, he lifted the glass. The liquid was warm against his lips, almost alive, sliding into him with a taste he could not describe, metallic, sweet, bitter, all at once. The moment it touched his throat, the world around him shifted. The bar shook faintly, lights flickering, bottles rattling against wooden shelves. His chest burned, and his veins lit up faintly beneath his skin, as though fire had replaced his blood. He gripped the table, his breath sharp and uneven. The woman did not move to help him. She only watched with eyes both sorrowful and resigned, as if she had seen this moment countless times before. A sound rose inside his ears, not from outside, not from the storm, but from within him. It was a low hum, like the voice of something ancient waking after centuries of sleep. His vision blurred, then sharpened, and he saw the bar differently. The shadows were no longer shadows, were shapes, crawling figures watching him from corners that twisted unnaturally. Bartender was gone, or perhaps he had never been there. The walls pulsed as though alive, breathing, expanding and contracting like the chest of some great beast. He staggered back, almost dropping the glass. But the drink was already gone. The fire inside him was spreading, reshaping. He gasped for air, But what entered his lungs did not feel like air, it felt like energy, raw and electric, filling him beyond human limit. The woman finally spoke again, her voice softer now, almost mournful. "It is done," she said. "You chose." He tried to stand, but his legs trembled under the weight of his own changing body. He looked down at his hands, veins glowing faintly blue, fingers twitching with strange sparks that danced like lightning under his skin. Fear flooded him, but alongside it came something else. A rush of power, a thrill so strong it almost drowned out the terror. The storm outside grew louder, thunder cracking in rhythm with his heartbeat. He raised his eyes to the woman, searching for answers, but she only pulled her hood tighter around her face. Her final words in that moment carved themselves into him like a scar. "You are no longer one of them. The world you knew is gone, and soon you will see what has always been hiding behind the veil." The glass slipped from his hand and shattered against the floor. The glowing liquid vanished into the cracks like it had never existed. And in the silence that followed, he realized the truth of her warning. He was no longer human. The night outside had grown louder, but inside the nameless bar, the silence was heavy enough to crush his breath. His hands still glowed faintly, as if embers hid beneath his skin, and the strange fire in his chest refused to fade. His palm against his ribs, hoping to calm his frantic heartbeat, but every pulse shook his body with force that felt almost inhuman. His senses sharpened, every sound amplified, every detail clearer than it should be. He could hear the rain slamming against the rooftops 2 blocks away, could smell the rust of the pipes behind the walls, could even taste the fear of his own sweat on the tip of his tongue. It was too much. His world had grown too loud, too sharp, too alive, and it was tearing him apart. The woman in black did not move. She only watched, as if this storm inside him was a process she had seen before. "Breathe," she said softly, her voice the only steady thing in the chaos. But breathing felt impossible. Each inhale filled him with more than air it filled him with whispers. The voices of things unseen crawled into his ears, muttering in languages he could not understand. And yet their meaning reached him deep in the core of his mind. They were calling his name, but it wasn't the name he remembered. It was something older, sharper, carried with a weight that felt alien and terrifying. He staggered back from the table, knocking over the chair, his eyes darting to the shadows around him. They were no longer shapes, they had form now. Crooked limbs, hollow faces with burning eyes. They had always been there, hiding where humans could not see. But now his vision pierced through the veil. They surrounded him, crawling along the ceiling, lurking against the walls, and every one of them stared at him with hunger and hate. He stumbled toward the bar's exit, desperate to escape, but the floor beneath him warped and twisted, stretching further and further away, as if the building itself wanted to trap him. He turned to the woman, his voice breaking. "What's happening to me?" His words trembled with both fear and rage. Her hood shadowed most of her face, but her lips pressed into a hard line. "You asked for the worst," she said. "Now you live it. You see the world as it is, not as humans imagine it to be. You are crossing into what lies beyond." Her words stabbed deeper than any weapon. The more he listened, the more his body shook. A wave of heat ran through his veins, followed by cold so sharp it numbed his bones. His reflection in the glass cabinet behind the bar caught his attention. At first he thought it was simply his face, pale and dripping with sweat.
How you do that?
But then his reflection blinked late slower than him, deliberate, as if it were something separate. His jaw dropped as the reflection smirked on its own, glowing veins brighter than his eyes filled with an alien light. His hands shot forward, smashing the glass, but the reflection lingered in the shards. Whispering back the name he had heard in his mind, he collapsed against the counter, gasping, his body shuddering under invisible weight. The woman finally stood, her movements controlled, graceful, as though gravity did not touch her the same way it touched others. She approached him and placed a cold hand on his shoulder. The touch sent another shock through his body, but it steadied him enough. To remain standing, her voice carried no comfort, only truth. "You drank what should not be drunk. That cup does not give power, it reveals what was always inside you. Your kind buried it long ago, but now it rises. Her words made no sense, but his instincts told him she wasn't lying. Deep within his chest, he felt something moving, coiled, and alive, like a beast chained for centuries now, stretching its limbs. His thoughts blurred between his own and those not his own. At moments he wanted to scream, at moments he wanted to laugh, and in others he wanted to tear the world apart just to feel the strength in his bones. His humanity was slipping with every breath, and the fire inside welcomed the loss. He pushed her hand away, stumbling toward the door once more. He needed air, space, anything but this cursed place. The door swung open, and the storm outside hit him with icy rain. But the city was not the same. The streets bent unnaturally, lights stretched, like rivers and shadows moved with purpose. He saw creatures standing at the corners, hidden in plain sight from ordinary eyes tall, thin figures with skin that shimmered like broken glass, faces without mouths, their eyes glowing faint red. They turned toward him all at once, as though sensing the change in him. And then, to his horror, they bowed their heads. His breath caught, his body trembled harder. The woman had followed him into the rain, her hood dripping, her eyes unblinking as she watched the impossible scene unfold. "They know," she said. "They see you now. You cannot hide from them anymore." He wanted to scream at her, demand answers, but his voice caught in his throat. The creatures raised their arms slowly, as though greeting a long-awaited master, and from the far end of the warped street another shape emerged. It was tall, cloaked in darkness, its outline shifting, as though it could not settle on one form. The figure stepped forward, its presence heavier than the storm, heavier than the air itself. The closer it came, the more his knees weakened. The figure finally spoke, its voice a deep echo that rattled his bones. At last it said, "You have returned to us?" His eyes widened. He did not know this creature, yet its words struck a memory inside him that wasn't his. The name echoed again in his head, louder now, undeniable. He fell to his knees, clutching his skull as if it might split apart. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the entire street. In that flash of light, he realized the truth. The drink had not given him something new. It had woken something old, something ancient, something that had always been inside him. Buried under the fragile shell of being human, the storm screamed louder, and the city seemed to bend under the weight of what had been unleashed. The woman's voice cut through the chaos one last time, low and heavy. "You have crossed the threshold. There is no going back now." And as the cloaked figure stretched out its hand toward him, the man realized that the warning had been far too simple. It was never about losing humanity, it was about discovering what he had been all along. The storm above the city did not fade. It grew heavier, as though the sky itself recognized what had been unleashed. The man knelt in the rain, his hands trembling, his mind split between fear and the strange hunger inside him that whispered, he should rise, that he should accept what was being offered. The cloaked figure stood at the end of the warped street, its presence bending every shadow. Behind it the creatures bowed, their bodies twitching with anticipation as though they were awaiting the command of a master who had finally returned. The woman in black stepped forward, placing herself between the kneeling man and the figure, her hand hovering near the hidden blade at her side. Her voice was cold, sharp, meant to cut through the noise of the storm. "You will not take him. Not yet." The figure's laughter rolled through the street like thunder. "You think you can stop what he is becoming? He drank the blood of the forgotten. He is ours. He has always been ours." The man tried to rise, but his body shook violently. His vision split into fragments, showing him different realities layered over one another. One moment he saw the wet city street, the next he saw battlefields of fire and ruins. Great machines walking among the ashes, and skies ripped open by colossal ships. He blinked and the visions vanished, but the echo of screams still rang in. His head stumbled back, clutching his skull, his humanity slipping like sand through his fingers. The woman grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at her. "Listen to me," she hissed. "What you saw, is not madness. It is memory. Not just yours, your bloodlines, centuries of war hidden from human eyes. You are tied to it. That is why I warned you. That is why the cup was forbidden. Words cut deep, but he could barely process them. His heartbeat roared in his ears like war drums. He wanted to scream that he never asked for this, that he never wanted to be part of anything beyond his simple, ordinary life. But another voice inside him whispered differently. It told him he had been asleep all his life, blind to the truth. And now, at last, he was awake. The cloaked figure raised its hand, and the creatures began to crawl forward, their bodies bending unnaturally, their hollow faces splitting open into wide, silent maws. Their eyes burned brighter as they moved. Eager to reach him, the woman drew her blade, a weapon that shimmered with faint silver light, humming with energy not of this world. She stood ready, her stance unshaken. Even as the storm howled above, before the creatures could touch him, she swung her blade in a wide arc. Light ripped through the air, slicing one of the creatures in half. Its body fell, dissolving into smoke. Before it even touched the ground, the others hissed, retreating for a moment, their heads twitching as if debating whether to strike again. She turned to the man, her face pale but determined. You need to understand, this is not just about you. Earth has always been caught between them, the ones who want to enslave and the ones who want to erase. Humans live blind, never seeing the war around them. But you were born too. See. Her words spun inside his head, colliding with the visions he had just seen. He wanted to deny her, to believe she was lying, but deep down he knew it was true. Every instinct told him he had not stumbled into this by accident. The drink, the woman, the shadows, none of it was chance. He was part of something written long before his birth. The cloaked figure stepped closer, its voice now sharp, commanding. Enough of this. He is ours. His blood carries the key. The war cannot end without him. The woman shouted back, her blade still glowing. He is not your weapon. He is not your slave. But the man could not ignore the fire inside him any longer. His veins burned, his muscles tightened, and suddenly power erupted from him without warning. Lightning cracked from his hands, striking the ground between him and the creatures. They recoiled instantly, their bodies screeching with static as the light burned through their hollow shells. Stumbled, horrified by what he had just done, but also exhilarated. For one terrifying second, it had felt good. The cloaked figure's voice rumbled with approval. Yes, you are awakening. Do you feel it? This is your true nature. Humanity was only a disguise. With us, you will be limitless. The woman grabbed him again, shaking him hard. Do not listen. They will twist. They will make you believe you are their savior, but they will strip away everything you are. You are still human if you fight for it. He looked between them, torn apart by the war inside his chest. On one side, power that promised greatness, immortality, freedom from weakness. On the other, the fragile life he had always known, slipping further away with every breath. The storm roared, and his choice felt heavier than the sky itself. The cloaked figure raised its hand once more, and suddenly the city around them dissolved. The streets stretched, the buildings melted, and the storm ripped open to reveal a battlefield. That was not of earth. He stood in a wasteland of cracked stone, where two armies faced each other, one of twisted creatures with glowing eyes, the other of armored beings with silver blades like the woman's. He gasped, spinning in panic. But the woman seemed unsurprised. This is the truth, she said. This war has raged for centuries, hidden from the eyes of men. You stand in the middle of it, because your blood carries something both sides want. You must decide who you are before they decide it for you. The man collapsed to his knees, the weight of revelation crushing him. His chest burned, his eyes glowed faintly, and the whispers inside him grew louder, chanting the ancient name that was not his, but felt like it had always belonged to him. He clenched his fists, trembling, caught between two destinies, and as the armies began to march toward one another, as the cloaked figure and the woman both reached for him with desperate urgency, he realized the most terrifying truth of all this was not just a war for Earth. This was a war for him. The battlefield vanished as suddenly as it appeared, and the man found himself back in the city, soaked by rain and gasping for air. His knees pressed against the broken pavement, and his heart hammered so violently that he thought it might rip out of his chest. The woman stood over him, her blade still glowing faintly, her hood dripping with storm water. The cloaked figure was gone, but the memory of its voice lingered inside his skull like a curse. The creatures that had bowed to him before had scattered into the shadows, but he knew they had not truly left. They were watching. They were waiting. He forced himself to stand, his body trembling, sparks flickering along his veins as if lightning lived under his skin. He tried to speak, to ask the woman who she really was, but his throat tightened before he could. The whispers inside his mind drowned out his words, calling him by the ancient name again and again. His humanity was a rope slipping through his fingers, and no matter how hard he tried to grip it, it kept sliding away. The woman placed a hand on his chest, pressing firmly as though trying to anchor him. "You must leave this place," she said quickly. "They will not stop hunting you now.
Ow.
Both sides have seen you, and both will come for you." Her urgency jolted him back into motion. He stumbled forward, following her through the rain-slick streets. Neon signs flickered above them, glowing strange colors he no longer trusted. Every alley seemed alive, every shadow twisting as though it hid hungry eyes. They turned corner after corner, but no matter where they ran, he felt watched. Then, without warning, the city itself shifted. Buildings stretched taller, windows warped into sharp angles, and doorways bled darkness. The creatures emerged again, crawling down the walls like insects, their glowing eyes fixed on him, their bodies bent unnaturally, snapping into shapes that made no sense. They did not move like hunters, they moved like predators who already knew their prey had no escape. The woman pulled him behind her, her blade humming louder, a silver light cutting through the dark. She slashed through the first creature that lunged at them, its body dissolving into black smoke. But for every one she struck down, two more appeared, their claws reaching, their maws stretching wide, as if to devour his very soul. He raised his hands without thinking, and lightning shot from his fingertips, striking one creature in the chest. It screamed, a sound like broken glass, and collapsed into ash. His breath caught. He hadn't meant to do it. The power had surged on its own, wild and uncontrollable. For a moment he felt fear, but then came something else. The power had felt.
Good.
The woman noticed the spark in his eyes and shouted at him, "Control it. Do not let it control you." But it was too late. The fire inside him had been waiting, hungry, and now that it had tasted freedom, it refused to be chained again. His arms shook as more sparks danced along his skin, and with each pulse, the creatures recoiled. He realized with a shiver of dread that they were not just hunting him, they feared him. The woman grabbed his arm, pulling him toward a side street. "We cannot fight them all. Not here. Not now. You must move." They ran through the twisted cityscape, creatures chasing them across rooftops, claws scraping against the walls. Some leapt down in front of them, blocking their path, but each time his power lashed out, either in lightning or in a wave of heat that rippled from his skin, scattering the attackers. Every strike terrified him, because every time he used it, he felt less like a man and more like something else entirely. They ducked into a narrow alley, the storm above muffling into a low, endless rumble. The woman pressed her back against the wall, breathing hard. "You feel it now, don't you? The strength. The fire, it is in you, but it does not belong to you. If you give yourself to it, you will lose who you are. That is why they hunt you, because they know once the fire consumes you, nothing in this world or the next can stop you." He wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but deep inside he knew she was right. Already, the whispers in his head felt louder than his own thoughts. The power whispered promises of victory, of freedom, of never being weak again. But behind the promises lurked something darker, something that wanted not just to guide him, but to control him. A sudden screech cut through the air, and the ground beneath them cracked. From the darkness ahead, a massive figure emerged, far larger than the twisted creatures they had fought before. Its body was armored with jagged obsidian plates, and its eyes burned like molten fire. The air thickened around it, heavy and suffocating. This was no ordinary hunter. This was a commander. The woman's grip on her blade tightened, her jaw clenched. "Run," she whispered. "You cannot face that." "Not yet." But the commander's voice rolled like thunder, low and terrible. "You cannot run from yourself. You belong to us." The man froze. The words pierced him, sinking deep, and for a terrifying moment, he believed them. His body shook violently as the fire inside surged, responding to the commander's call. His veins lit brighter than ever, his eyes glowing faintly in the dark. He stumbled forward as though pulled by invisible chains. The woman stepped between him and the monster, raising her blade defiantly. "He is not yours," she shouted. The commander laughed, a sound like stone breaking. "You cannot protect him from what he is becoming. Even if you strike me down, the fire will consume him. And when it does, he will come to us willingly." Man's chest burned, his mind fractured between her voice and the commander's, between the fading echo of humanity and the rising roar of something far older, far stronger. His knees buckled, his hands sparking wildly as the storm above cracked open with light. And in that moment, as the commander raised its clawed hand and the woman prepared to strike, the man realized the most terrifying truth yet. The real hunt was not the monsters chasing him through the streets. The real hunt was inside him, the battle to remain human before the fire claimed him completely. The storm had faded, but the city was not calm. Broken streets twisted like ribbons of metal and glass. Neon signs flickered in strange colors, and the air was heavy with the scent of ozone and something older, something that smelled of history and blood. The man stumbled through the ruins, his body exhausted, his chest still burning from the uncontrolled surge of power inside him. Every step felt heavier than the last, as though the city itself was pressing down on him, testing him. His hands still glowed faintly. Every heartbeat reminded him of what he had become, a vessel not meant for ordinary life. The woman in black followed silently, her blade sheathed now, but her eyes sharp and alert. She had been quiet for a long time, watching him struggle with the fire that roared beneath his skin. Finally, she stopped in the middle of a cracked street, turning to face him fully. "You have learned much already," she said, her voice low, yet heavy with the weight of truth. "But what you still do not know is why it was you who drank the cup, why it was never just a warning." He looked at her, fatigue and fear mixing in his gaze. "Then tell me," he said. "I need to know. I cannot fight what I do not understand." She nodded, as though she had been waiting for that moment. "The cup you drank was never meant to harm. It was a key, a trigger. Your bloodline carries something ancient, something hidden for generations. You are a descendant of those who fought a war long before humans claimed the earth. They locked away a power that could end empires or destroy worlds, and it lived within you, waiting for the right moment." The words struck him like lightning. His knees buckled slightly, and he pressed his hands against his head, trying to make sense of it. "Power? What do you mean? Why me?" She stepped closer, her hood still hiding most of her face, but the intensity in her eyes cut through the shadows. "Because you were born to this, whether you wanted it or not. Your ancestors sealed the weapon inside your blood, too. Protect the world from what it could become. But the moment you drank the cup, it awoke. It will not wait quietly any longer. It will grow, and it will demand freedom." He staggered backward, fear and awe twisting inside him. "Demand freedom? What? What happens if it does?" The woman's voice hardened. "It will consume you first. Every piece of humanity you have left will burn away. And then it will take what it wants: power, destruction, dominance, over the very earth itself. That is why the factions hunt you. One side wants to control it, the other wants to destroy it before it can rise." He pressed a trembling hand against his glowing chest, the whispers inside his mind now louder, angrier. The fire that had terrified him for days now spoke clearly, tempting him with strength, with freedom from weakness. with a world that could bend to his will if only he surrendered. He wanted to fight it, to cling to the humanity he had left. But every moment of resistance made the whispers grow louder, almost unbearable. The woman knelt in front of him, gripping his hands tightly. "Listen to me. This is not just a battle for the world outside. It is a battle for you. If you lose yourself to the weapon inside, you will not just change, you will become a force that neither side can stop. And then nothing you love will survive." Tears stung his eyes, a mixture of fear, rage, and grief. He had never asked for this. He had never wanted to be more than a man, yet now he carried the fate of powers he could barely understand. The city seemed to watch him, silent and expectant. As if it waited for the moment he would choose his path, she continued, her voice softer now, almost sad. "The drink revealed what was always inside you, but the choice remains yours. You can resist it, learn to control it, and fight like your ancestors did. Or you can give in and let it rule you. Do not think there is no hope. There is always hope for those willing to fight for it. But the longer you wait, the harder the fight will be." He sank to his knees, head bowed. The fire inside him throbbed, pulsing with energy that seemed alive, whispering promises of power and revenge. He could feel the ancient weapon stirring, stretching its influence through his veins, speaking to him in voices that were not human. He clenched his fists, trying to hold on, but it was like holding a storm in his hands. Can I control it?" he asked finally, his voice breaking. The woman placed her hand on his shoulder. "Yes, but you must learn quickly. The factions will not wait. The hunters are coming, and soon the commander itself will arrive. You must decide who you are before they decide for you. Only then will the fire inside obey you rather than destroy you." A low growl rumbled in the distance, vibrating through the cracked streets. He looked up, and for the first time, he felt the weight of his destiny pressing down fully upon him. He could feel the presence of both sides closing in: the hunters, the cloaked commander, the creatures that had once bowed and now lurked, waiting for weakness. The city seemed to pulse with their arrival, alive with a tension that made every hair on his body stand. He clenched his fists tighter, the glow from his veins flaring brighter. The whispers inside him calmed for a brief moment, as if acknowledging that he had listened, that he had understood, that he knew the stakes. His jaw set, and for the first time, he felt a spark of clarity amid the chaos. The woman watched him, her eyes unreadable. "This is the moment," she said quietly. "The moment you either embrace what you are or let it consume you. The war is bigger than you, yes, but so is the power within you. Choose wisely." The wind howled through the broken streets, carrying the distant cries of the hunters and the commander's shadow looming ever closer. He rose slowly, a strange calm settling over him. For the first time, he looked at the glowing veins in his hands, not with fear, but with determination. He did not yet know if he could control it, but he understood the truth. The weapon inside him was not his enemy, but a force he had to master or perish trying. And as the storm clouds above parted, slightly revealing a faint glimmer of stars, he realized that the real battle was only beginning, and nothing would ever be the same again. The city had become a battlefield. Broken streets twisted like rivers of glass, neon signs flickered, and the air smelled of ozone, smoke, and something ancient, like the memory of war itself. The man stood at the center, rain dripping from his soaked hair, his hands glowing faintly, veins pulsing with the fire that had awakened within him. He could feel the power stretching alive, urgent, waiting to break free. The whispers had grown into a roar, each word carrying a promise and a threat. "Surrender, and everything will bow to you. Resist, and you will burn, but retain what is yours." The woman in black stood beside him, blade drawn, eyes scanning the city. She had guided him this far, taught him what she could in moments stolen between battles. "They are coming," she said. "The hunters, the commander, both sides. They want you. But now the choice is yours. There is no turning back." He looked around, taking in the distorted streets, the shadows crawling toward them, the twisted forms of creatures lurking in the alleys. He thought of the city as it had been, quiet, ordinary, ignorant of the wars that raged beyond its walls. Its city no longer existed. It had died the moment he drank the forbidden cup. A low rumble shook the streets, and the commander appeared, taller and more terrifying than ever. Its obsidian body gleamed under the neon light, eyes burning molten red. Behind it, the hunters advanced, a tide of forms unnatural and deadly. They spread out across the streets, closing in like a net, leaving no escape. The woman placed a hand on his arm. "Remember," she whispered, "you are not a weapon. You are more than they think. But you must choose. Now." The fire inside him surged violently, responding to the commander's presence. His vision blurred, then sharpened, revealing the hidden layers of reality he had glimpsed before. He could see the creatures moving faster than the eye could follow, sense their intent, feel the energy of the battlefield before it happened. The whispers inside his head spoke clearly now. "You are power. You are fire. You are the end of this war." He clenched his fists, glowing brighter, the energy rippling outward. The commander stepped forward, its clawed hand raised, voice like grinding. "Stone, give yourself to us. Become what you were always meant to be. Resist, and you die." The woman shouted, her blade cutting through the stormy air. "Do not listen. You are your own master." He froze for a heartbeat, torn between surrendering to the fire and holding on to the remnants of his humanity. He thought of the life he had lost, the man he had been, the ordinary existence that had been ripped away in a single sip. And yet, within that loss, he also felt strength, the realization that this power was not just a curse, but a force that could be guided, controlled. Mastered, he raised his hands slowly, letting the energy pulse outward. The hunters screamed, recoiling, and the commander's eyes flared with anger. His body glowed with a brilliant light, his veins like rivers of molten energy. Every step he took made the ground tremble, the city responding to his presence. The storm above mirrored his power, lightning striking in sync with his heartbeat. "Will not control me," he said, his voice steady for the first time. "I will decide what I am," the commander roared, charging forward. But he met it with a wave of energy that tore through the streets, splitting the asphalt, scattering the hunters in every direction. Creatures screamed, dissolving into smoke when touched by his power. He felt the fire inside him calm, not extinguished, but obeying, bending to his will. The whispers became guidance instead of commands, teaching him to harness what had once threatened to consume him. The woman stepped closer, awe in her eyes. "You've done it," she breathed. "You control it." He looked around. The battlefield was quieting, the monsters retreating, the commander staggering, defeated, not dead, but repelled. The city seemed to breathe again, recognizing him. Not as a human, not as a weapon, but as something beyond both. He felt the last flicker of fear slip from his chest. He had chosen. He had faced the fire, and it had not destroyed him. It had transformed him. The commander shrank back into the shadows, whispering threats that would never reach him again. The hunters scattered, their forms vanishing like mist under the morning sun. Silence fell over the twisted streets, broken only by the patter of rain. The woman knelt before him, lowering her blade. "You are what we have always waited for. Not a slave, not a weapon, something more, something the war never expected." He looked down at his hands, glowing faintly, still pulsing with power but no longer threatening. He felt the humanity inside him, tempered and guided by the fire he had embraced. It was not lost, it had evolved. It was no longer the man he had been, but he was himself. The woman rose slowly, pulling back her hood to reveal her full face. For the first time, he saw not a stranger, but a mentor, a guardian, someone who had chosen to wait for him to awaken. She extended her hand, and when he took it, she whispered, "Welcome, my king." He blinked at the words, stunned, but a strange calm filled him. The war had not ended, but he was ready. The fire inside him no longer demanded obedience. It offered choice. He could protect, destroy, rule, or rebuild. The world was no longer simple. It was alive, dangerous, and full of potential. Above, the storm clouds parted, revealing stars that had never seemed brighter. The city around him seemed smaller, fragile under the weight of his presence. He breathed in deeply, feeling the last tremors of the battle fade. His eyes glowed softly, not in fear, not in rage, but in understanding. He had crossed the threshold. There was no way back. And yet, for the first time, he did not fear what lay ahead. The fire inside him whispered. Once more, softly, obediently. This is yours, you decide. And as he stepped forward into the broken streets, the woman following silently behind, he realized the truth he had learned through fire, battle, and revelation. Power alone is nothing without choice. And he had chosen. The city, the war, the factions, they would come again. But he was ready. He had embraced the fire, and in doing so, he had become more than human.